Football stadiums are cathedrals of emotion. They echo with roars of joy, sighs of heartbreak, and a soundtrack composed by the fans themselves, songs, chants, and jeers that can lift a team or crush a soul. But in the heat of rivalry, when tribal passion blurs the line between banter and brutality, football has seen some truly disrespectful chants that linger far longer than the final whistle. Take Bruno Fernandes, for instance. Talented, intense, passionate, and for some reason, now eternally associated with a rat. "You look like a rat," chanted opposing fans during one particularly charged game. And it stuck. The insult was juvenile, sure, but it struck a nerve, because football crowds don't need facts, just a vibe and a chantable rhythm. The comparison spread like wildfire, becoming a meme, a TikTok soundbite, a punchline, and, eventually, a stain that Bruno just had to live with. Every away game was a chorus of rodent references. A world-class midfielder reduced to a cartoon character in the minds of rival supporters. But Bruno wasn't the first, and he certainly won't be the last. Sol Campbell probably heard worse, much worse. When he left Tottenham for bitter rivals Arsenal, it was seen as the ultimate betrayal. Spurs fans didn't just boo him. They created entire songs, long, offensive, vile chants, that followed him for years. They weren't just mocking his footballing choices. They made it personal, bringing in cruel references to his sexuality, his mental health, and things that had no business being part of a football chant. Even when the chants were condemned by anti-discrimination organizations, they still echoed from the stands. Sol once said it felt like being hunted, and you can believe it. Luis Suárez. He walked into stadiums like a magnet for hate. After the Patrice Evra incident and the bite heard around the world, rival fans came prepared. Some barked at him from the stands like rabid dogs. Others mocked him with endless choruses of, "Cheat, cheat, cheat." They didn't care that he was one of the most electrifying forwards in the game. To them, he was just a villain, and villains don't get respect, they get ridiculed. Then there's Ashley Cole, whose move from Arsenal to Chelsea earned him the nickname, Cashley, from fans who believed he left for money. Arsenal supporters sang, "Ashley Cole, he's a expletive," in full voice, often holding fake £20 notes with his face on them. It wasn't even subtle. It was theatrical, personal insults disguised as entertainment. Wayne Rooney wasn't spared either. After he handed in a transfer request and flirted with moves away from Manchester United, rival fans, and even some United ones, called him every name under the sun. His hair transplant became a punchline. His personal life was dragged into the mix. It didn't matter how many goals he scored. Football fans never forget, or forgive. And perhaps one of the darkest moments came when Leeds United fans aimed a chant at Manchester United referencing the 1958 Munich Air Disaster, singing, "Always look on the runway for ice." It was a moment that shocked the footballing world, an example of when tribalism rots into cruelty. Even other rival fans found that chant too much. It crossed a sacred line. Some things are simply off limits. But that's the paradox of football culture. Chants can be art, wit, and identity. But they can also be weapons. In the battle for bragging rights, sometimes humanity is the first casualty. And as fans, as much as we live for the banter, there's a fine line between being clever and being cruel. Football is passion, drama, history, but it's also about respect. Maybe it's time to remember that. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the wild world of football's most disrespectful chants, and you want more stories from the beautiful, and sometimes brutal, game, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's so much more to uncover. See you in the next one.